it preclude us from identifying at a later date that any of these are not appropriate or feasible in the 2027-28 management measures package. It is possible the GMT and Council will not have the capacity to analyze and take action on every management measure identified, especially if the September and/or November Council meetings are remote. The GMT requests Council guidance in prioritizing management measure items throughout the process. And so the preliminary list that we have here is management measure changes in response to 2025 stock assessments and resulting stock status outcomes, develop species-specific trip limits for species managed within a complex. As part of the in-season action at the November 2024 meeting, the GMT was informed by NIMS that an in-season action was not an appropriate rulemaking vehicle for creating a new sub-trip limit for a species managed within a stock complex, and that report is cited there. Last on the preliminary list is to analyze potential allocation changes for biennially allocated stocks. The Council and GAP have both indicated particular interest in canary rockfish allocations, but the GMT will coordinate with the GAP to identify if any other stocks are good candidates. For any stocks where a longer timeline would be needed to sufficiently explore options and analyze impacts, the Council could agendize them for a separate rulemaking package. When considering potential intersector allocation changes, the Council should, to the extent practicable, consider the ecological, economic, and social factors under the framework of accepted practices for analysis of allocations. For example, analysis informing the guidelines identified in the NIMS procedure, recommended practices and factors to consider when reviewing and making allocation decisions can be carried out in a multitude of ways depending on available resources and time constraints. Recognizing that there is limited time during the 2027-28 management measures analysis, the GMT could lean on certain elements that are feasible to accomplish in the allotted time frame. The Scientific and Statistical Committee may be particularly helpful in establishing best practices and aligning analytical approaches with the specifics of the West Coast groundfish fishery and integrating them into the biennial management measures analysis process. Last bit. During the 2025-26 groundfish harvest specifications and management measure cycle, the Council and GMT explored potential canary rockfish allocation changes in response to concerns about the lower ACL starting in 2025. However, due to time constraints, the GMT was not able to fully investigate all possible options. Additionally, the GMT was unclear on the boundaries we could develop options within. If management measures for canary rockfish or any other stock are a priority for the Council in 2027-28 to alleviate industry constraints, the GMT recommends the Council task the GAP with bringing forward detailed information in September on the specific constraints preventing each sector from optimum utilization and impacting their business operations. For example, the GMT has heard challenges with acquiring canary rockfish quota in the trawl fishery due to the risk of lightning strikes on a vessel level. The GMT is also aware that different challenges likely exist in the non-trawl and recreational sectors, as well as nuanced differences across the 3 states. Moving into September with a better, more specific understanding of these industry challenges will help the GMT and Council formulate a problem statement that the GMT can then use to develop options for management measure changes. If the Council prioritizes canary rockfish management measure changes to be explored, the GMT also sees merit in the team bringing information to the Council in September on the history of current canary rockfish management measures, including the allocations, so that the Council has a shared understanding of the current management structure before considering whether changes can or should be made. The GMT would also consult NIMS on the boundaries we could develop options within. Should the Council wish to task the GAP and GMT with this scoping process, we ask for detailed guidance from the Council in the fall of 2025 regarding the analysis they would like the GMT to do based on the information presented in September. The GMT's ability to sufficiently and effectively inform the Council's decision on any potential changes in 2027 to 2028 hinges on this guidance. And with that, I will be happy to take any of your questions, and I have my GMT comrades in the room for backup if needed.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Massey on the management team report? Caroline McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Lynn, for the report. I just want to make sure I'm not misinterpreting the statement at the bottom of page 2 that says the GMT would also consult NIMS on the boundaries we could develop options within. Is that referencing new versus routine or something different? I just think I need a little bit more clarification on that. Thank you.
Through the Vice Chair, yes, you are interpreting that that correctly, Ms. McKnight. We are distinguishing what is, within the bounds of a routine management measure, something that can stay with this specs package versus a brand new management measure, which would have to happen on a separate track.
Thank you. Chair Pettinger?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Asmer. Lynn, I think your statement where it talks about the gap indicated particular interest in canary rockfish allocation sets. Would be more some members of the gap, because I think the gap has been pretty clear that it's just a couple people are interested, not necessarily the gap as a whole. Is that true?
Through the Vice Chair. Yeah, I think you could say that. I guess it would be accurate to say that not the entire gap is interested. Okay. It was, as I'm sure we all remember, a really, really big topic last cycle. And I guess answering that off the cuff, if the council does not feel comfortable tasking the whole gap with information to bring forward, that's fine. But if we only asked a few of them about it, I have a feeling that wouldn't go well.
I was just telling you,
Go ahead.
Your statement kind of indicates that the gap asked for that. And I think I don't know if the gap, they have a statement asking for that. Like some members, I know it's kind of, it's probably not a big deal,
okay.
but I just.
We'll be getting a gap report
That's true.
coming up, so.
Through the
I'm
Vice
not
Chair.
sure if, is there more you can add to that?
I think I can, yeah. I think that the reason, the sentiment in the GMT behind asking something from the gap is because last time we were very time constrained and kind of had to do that in a vacuum. The options that we brought forward, which were simply just changing numbers within the existing allocation scheme, and the options that we brought forward, didn't work out. They were not satisfactory to anyone, and so I think before we go too far down a rabbit hole of analysis, I think we want to have some more upfront conversation with the gap first and maybe get some direction from them. And that's the sentiment behind that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Further questions? I don't see any hands. Thank you, Lynn. And next we have the Groundfish Advisory Subpanel Report. Louis Zim. Good afternoon, Louis.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the council, and I might say good friends. My name is Louis Zim, and I'll be reading from agenda item E8, the supplemental gap report. 1, Groundfish Advisory Subpanel Report on 27-28 harvest specifications and management measures planning. Referencing the supplemental revised attachment 1, proposed schedule for developing the 27-28 groundfish harvest specifications and management measures, the Groundfish Advisory Subpanel, the GAP, recommends the Pacific Fishery Management Council adopt this proposed schedule that we referenced there in that paragraph. However, the GAP is concerned about the potential for virtual GAP groundfish management team meetings during that time due to funding concerns. September and November 2025 are crucial meetings for stock assessments and getting into details of the harvest specifications process. Virtual or remote advisory body meetings make it much more difficult to create comprehensive statements on issues like harvest specifications that are notoriously difficult to navigate. The GAP recommends that the council task the GMT with the following in preparation for September discussions. Number 1, explore sub-trip limits for the shelf rockfish complex north of 4010 north latitude. Number 2, explore changes to California recreational fishery to remove recreational rockfish conservation areas in favor of management via sub-bag limits only. Additionally, some GAP members recommend that the GMT explore allocation changes for canary rockfish. which may answer one of your questions. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Let me look around. Any questions on the gap report? Caroline McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Louis, for the report. I just want to ask a question about the last sentence here, recommending the exploration of allocation changes for Canary Rockfish. Was there any conversation in the room about where this might fall in priority with the last agenda item among all the other flexibility measures that were discussed? Or if that's out of bounds or you didn't, that's fine too. I'm just looking for some general understanding of the importance of this one compared to the broader other flexibility measures that provide relief across all sectors.
Well, my memory is that we didn't discuss this at length. There was one comment that came up that said that some part of the industry would be very interested in this, and some part of the industry would not have the same level of interest. And so that makes me feel that some of the other things that we have here may take precedence. But I can look behind for some of my colleagues and see if they have anything other than that. Harrison is here. Maybe he can remember something more.
Harrison, anything to add?
Thank you very much. No, there's not a whole lot to add to that. I understand that at the bottom of our comment, obviously Canary just came up, and Brad Pettinger just recently asked the GMT about Canary conversations within the gap. Lynn and Louis had both answered that quite well. There's been very little discussion in the gap regarding Canary allocations. Where we had previously left it off was that the majority of the gap had agreed to endure the Canary pain together. There are a couple of people that maybe would like to explore something different, but that also had led into what your question was. Caroline, was that we decided to definitely further put some emphasis into the specs flex option for this exact reason.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Other questions for the gap? No more hands? Thank you.
Thank you all.
That completes our reports, takes us to public comment. I believe there is no public comment on this, so that will move us into our council task, which I believe is that the entirety of it there? I think you know what they are and you can reference lists, so who wants to start the discussion? Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This may seem simple that we're adopting a schedule, but adopting the spec schedule is an important piece of what we do to begin each cycle. There are a number of benchmarks, timelines, deadlines that have to be met, and if one gets slowed down, it can have a steamroller, big snowball going down the mountain effect and affect other things. And I think this cycle, it's going to be even more important giving some of the challenges our colleagues at NIMS are going to be dealing with, just with lower staff numbers and sometimes taking longer to get through headquarters. So this schedule that we're adopting and hopefully all agreeing to will be important that we all do our best to stick to it and hold our own feet to the fire on many things. Every cycle something comes up and it gets goobered up, but we just need to do our best. When it comes time, do have some guidance for the GMT for some overwinter work, but not overwinter, over summer work. It's June, not January. But yeah, this is just helping lay out the work plan for the next basically year as we work on the 27-28 harvest specifications. And I'm really bummed I didn't get to see Todd's presentation because I don't know anything about specs. And I wanted all of us to see the wheel of doom or the spiral of doom. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Other discussion? Heather Hall.
Thank you. I just want to go back to the conversation that was happening with the GMT and the gap around Canary Rockfish, and just recognize this is something that WDFW has talked about for the last couple of spec cycles, and our interest to just simply look at the biennial specifications. That's typically what we do in specs. It is one of the routine things that we look at is our biennial harvest specifications. I 100% understand that Canary is a challenge for everyone, and that it is a big topic, and that it's hard and for all sectors, and that in the interest of not getting into an allocation battle. I understand that. So I think what the GMT had in their report, I really appreciate. I view that as getting all the tools and information we have available so that we can make good decisions in September about how we want to direct the GMT on their specs analysis as they get started. And I thank them for teeing that up now. I also want to talk about Canary in the context of the fantastic conversation that we just had under E7. I think that's also a really, I'm excited about it. And it clearly from the conversation that the council had and the public, there are some really neat things that can provide relief and hopefully for Canary too. And I'm looking forward to that. And if we can get there with that, that approach and that flexibility, that specs flex, that would be terrific. So I just wanted to speak to this conversation around Canary, be very transparent about the interest there, very similar to last year or last spec cycle, and also recognize that thinking about it in the context of specs flex as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Caroline McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Heather, for those comments. I guess leading right off of that, I was listening under the E7 agenda item, and not because I want to ask the question again, but I think I heard that there were some ad hoc opportunities to explore a few of those flex measures in specs. And so I guess by way of talking about or verifying, just trying to understand if sounds like there might be some possibility to do that. And I don't think it needs to be fleshed out here today, but since this is our kickoff planning meeting and we're talking about the schedule, it seems like I just want to get confirmation that I'm not completely off base, that there might be some opportunity. And what I'm thinking specifically is the context of the canary we've heard about this week that is constraining our trawl fisheries, and the short spine that's constraining our non-trawl fisheries, and petrale similarly, those three that were mentioned in the in-season report. Thank you.
Keely Kent.
Thank you. I'll take that one. The only tool that we have in the toolbox right now is an ad hoc ABC control rule change. We could do that in specs if that was appropriate and the direction that we wanted to go. That is part different than what we're talking about under specs flex. We're talking about different tools. So there's a distinction there. I think there's a tool we've used twice. I think we've used it. That certainly exists, but it is not the same suite of things that we're talking about under specs flex.
Thank you. Other questions? Discussion? Sorry. Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I didn't see any other hands popping up, so I do have a motion, and then following that, I have some guidance as well. So whenever we're ready.
I believe we are ready.
All righty. The rock stars in the back already have it ready for me. I move the council adopt the schedule and plan for the 27-28 groundfish harvest specifications and management measures process as outlined in agenda item E8 supplemental revised attachment 1 from June 2025.
The language on the screen appears accurate and complete. Do you agree?
Yes, sir, it does, other than A that's capitalized that probably doesn't need to be in adopt after council. But the language is correct. Thank you.
Perfect. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Krista Svensson. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I don't know that I need to speak much more to it. I already mentioned it, that this is our roadmap for how we do specs, and one item leads into the next, and we just need to be sure to keep up with that list and that schedule, and a lot of work ahead of us over the next 12 months.
All right. Any questions for clarification on the motion? Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any hands. I'll call a question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Lynn. Why don't we just move along with the guidance piece?
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I did write this out just so it was a little easier for all of us to look at. And one of our tasks under this agenda item was guidance for possible over summer work. So I do request the GMT, council, and NIP staff, whoever's going to be involved in specs. I don't know who all that team would be. I'm assuming Todd and somebody else. Begin to examine Canary rockfish allocations, building off of the work conducted for the 25-26 harvest specifications, which was in supplemental GMT report 2 from March of 2024, in preparation for the upcoming 27-28 biennial process. To do that, use historical sector-specific sharing and mortality, which I have listed below, as a starting place. The 2015-2016 specification sharing, which was the last sharing before the 2015 assessment. 2016 mortality by sector, which was the last year before the higher ACLs resulting from the 2015 assessment. 2017-18 specification sharing, which was the first sharing with the higher ACLs resulting from the 2015 assessment. 2024 mortality by sector, which is the most recent year of full mortality. Okay, and 2025 specification sharing, which is the most recent specification sharing. And with those, it's looking at the percentage by sector, not using the metric tons to develop percentages to look at sharing. And then the next two come out of the GAP recommendations on look at sub-trip limits for shelf rockfish complex north of 4010 and explore changes to the California recreational fishery to remove recreational rockfish conservation areas in favor of management via sub-bag limits only.
Okay. Is that the complete?
That is the end of it. Yes, they got it all under the screen.
Watch the little slider there. I'm not sure if there's more, so.
Nope, that's everything that was in the written guidance that I tried to provide.
All right. A response, is there agreement with that guidance or discussion on it? Keely Kent.
Just have a question. Trying to, I think, look back at the GMT report. There was some requests for engagement from the GAP, and I'm just wondering, Lynn, if you view this as the starting place, and then there would be further discussion and exploration with the GAP or the members of the GAP that want to engage on this. Just sort of trying to capture that piece because that was a specific thing the GMT brought up.
Through the Vice Chair, Ms. Kent, I did not specifically speak to that. It was an oversight, but I do believe this would be a starting point to get those conversations going this summer. And I'm seeing a couple of head nods around with that intent. But yes, to try. I don't know if we need to add a line to the guidance, but since the guidance isn't that formal, yes, request the GAP or the GMT recommendation to work with those interested parties in the GAP, exploring this further. And I'm sorry, we're just starting to get a little tough at this point in the afternoon.
Keely, a follow-up?
Thanks. I appreciate that, and I think that's helpful. I also, I appreciate the specificity of the guidance. I think that really gets at some of what happened the last time around on Canary, so I think that's a good starting place. But I also want to note, because it is explicit in the request that NIM staff engage on this, right? At this point, we're only staffing the specifications with a single person. In the past cycles, we've had 2 or more. I view this as a good task for the GMT and the GAP and council staff, but I want to be transparent that I would put it lower on our priority list as we look at all of the specs tasks that we need to work through.
Lynn?
Through the Vice Chair, Ms. Kent. Yeah, I tried to leave it general, not knowing who exactly was going to be on the analytical team and who would have time when. Request the analytical team, those who are going to be working on it, but understand the limitations that NIMS is under and the limited reduced staffing available for this process.
Thank you. Asia Shumalo?
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I think relative to Canary, I'm considering the discussion that we had earlier under in season, and then Ms. McKnight's comment just now about trying to think through like what ad hoc approaches might be available. I'm wondering if, this guidance could come up specific to Canary, but I guess it's applicable everywhere. But I'm wondering if it makes sense to have some kind of guidance motion about like be mindful of using ad hoc approaches, if possible, to create flexibility for the fleet. But as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that there might be a place for it somewhere else other than in this specific motion that really is geared towards Canary. So I'll leave it there. That's not really a question. Thank you.
Chair Pettinger?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Hasmer. Did I hear that right, that we want to, for the GMT, the council, and NIM staff, and the 2 GAP members that want to change the allocation? Is that what I heard here? So,
Well, maybe I should let Linda speak, but what I heard is it's somewhat undefined, yet the work group that would do that in this early phase. But let me turn to Lynn and then possibly Todd to see how we would formulate this here. And again, this is guidance, so I'm going to look around and make sure we're not going to vote on it, but see if there's head nods agreeing with this. There's more we can add, of course, but or any objections to it. So, Todd, your interpretation of the team that would do this work.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It would be my interpretation that I would bring the GMT along in a meeting group, determine who would do what and on what timeline. This would occur shortly after this meeting when our brains are back and functioning. And at that time, we would essentially develop a process and plan to tackle these topics here, and obviously assign leads or sub-leads to each individual item based on the speciality of the GMT members. Noting, of course, that these would these would be more linked to the state representatives on the team rather than it would be the National Marine Fisheries Service representatives or the tribal representative.
Heather Hall?
Thank you for that, Todd. And yeah, when I look at just the Canary bullet, this is really just a historical view of how the sharing has worked. It's not really a high workload or analysis at all. It's simply providing the background on how those biennial specifications have worked. And I think the timelines there are really good. They're before rebuilding in the 2015 stock assessment, and then in the periods after that. And there were just some changes there. And certainly our Washington GMT representatives can work on that.
Todd?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Another thing that I would mention is the council probably should not expect a fully fleshed out analysis like you've come to see in the specs processes. These would be something that would be informative and that the council could use to ask for further in-depth and detailed analyses, if that's appropriate.
Caroline McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think I'm going to ask a specific question. I'm not sure it's for Heather or for Todd, but I guess I'm looking at this as an opportunity over summer, like you said, Heather, to provide a general understanding of where the boxes have been drawn relative to Canary, and that traditionally September has been the meeting where we put a formal list together for what's moving forward for continued analysis. And we do have a few other things here. This is what I view as early guidance. It does not presume that these things will or will not make the cut in this exact form or will advance. So for example, we have a request on the table to ask for a catch-only update for Canary rockfish. That information, presumably if it gets approved in time is made for it, it comes in September and may change the landscape of this particular set of information and guidance in front of us that might lend to a different outcome. That's my feeling on how we're approaching this. I'm looking for the same level of like, are we on the same page in terms of what this guidance means?
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Thank you. That clarification is good. Keep us there. Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Vice Chair. On that piece, when we were talking about Canary last cycle, it came in too late, and I think at that time we all agreed that we needed to start taking a look at it early because it affects all the sectors. So that would bringing this up now is the chance to sort of set the stage for those discussions later as part of the specs. And then to get to Chair Pettinger's question about two members of the GAP. It was some members of the GAP. In the GAP statement, they said some members are interested in the Canary. So we will, I anticipate whoever in the GAP is interested in participating and providing information will be involved. I don't think it'll be limited to a specific number of GAP members. We're just trying to be sensitive to the GAP report that says some members of the GAP are interested. Hopefully as many as possible will be participating so that we get some well-rounded information. So not trying to jump the line on presupposing anything with September, November and specs. And yeah, the update on Canary could change the landscape we're looking at. I think we're all trying to come at the Canary issue from a variety of directions, hoping one or two of them will stick and provide some relief.
Chair Pettinger.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hasselmer. I think it'd be good just to make sure we go through the GAP chairs, make sure that's the proper protocols there. I'm just kind of wondering also what 2015-16 was still overfished. You know, those are overfished allocations and just trying to get through to the rebuilt stock. I'm not sure what that's going to do for you in the grand scheme of things. We're not overfished now, and I think that might, maybe not spend much time in that or any at all, just to move forward with the current situation. More clarity would arise from that. So, thank you.
Heather Hall.
I think just to have that information would be helpful. It's the pre 2015 assessment, and then we have post, and I think it bookends the information that we have. It's just simply information. So I'd like to make sure that the 15-16 specifications are in there.
All right. Thank you. Let me look around. Rebecca Lent.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just have a question about allocation. I'm trying to find this in the background document. But this list seems to point to history of landings and mortality as the key factors. Are they the only factors that would be considered? I mean, this is not a list that would preclude using other information. Thank you.
Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Dr. Lent, no, that is not to preclude anything. It's just to show the base of where we've been, how this has been allocated in the past, to maybe look as a starting point to show and to, with the specification showing how it was allocated and then the mortality to show what was actually used. It's solely to serve as a base point to start, or a jumping point, off point to serve as for the analysis. It's not intended to presuppose anything.
Right. Other discussion? And this is guidance. I want to make sure everybody's clear with that. If there's any objections to it, make sure you state those or anything else you'd like to have added. But otherwise, I'm going to look to Todd and ask him here. We've had a motion and we have some guidance and maybe summarize what this sets in place into the future and what we've done. Thanks.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So the motion approves the supplemental revised attachment 1, which is the process and plan for essentially the next year of meetings regarding the harvest specifications and management measures process. I will note that some of the revisions were based off the SSC's earlier comments in their statement, and that was obviously adopted. The guidance is specific, in this case, to canary rockfish regarding allocations and information the council would like to see come forth in September to inform your decision-making process, potentially about any type of allocation changes or considerations for canary. You also have 2 other items there, one being looking at individual species trip limits within the harbor of the stock complexes north of 4010. And I am forgetting about the last one, but there is another piece of guidance there that was quite clear. It just is escaping my brain at the moment. I would say yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Council, you have completed the tasks before you, and you can conclude this agenda item.
All right, let me look around one last time, make sure everybody's comfortable with this, said their piece. Seeing nothing additional, then we will close out this agenda item. Thank you all for your work on that. And I believe with that, we're going to go to research and data needs, but there will be some seat changes. I don't remember how long we've been here. Let's take 10 minutes and reassemble, and then we can charge through that one. 10-minute break. All right, let's back to our chairs, please. All right, as we get organized here, get started, just one announcement for Kevin Dunn for all the time and effort of early morning hours he's put in to make sure our donut rule is effectively carried out. I'm exempting his phone for any disturbances it might have caused here today. So just from your phone, but it's exempted. So thanks. Let's get started here on the last agenda item for today, D3, the research and data needs. And I will turn it over to Marlene Bellman to give us the overview. Marlene.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hassemer. Good afternoon, members of the council. This is agenda item D3, research and data needs, final action. According to the Magnuson-Stevens Act, the council is required to review research and data needs and provide a list of the council's priorities to support the management of U.S. West Coast fisheries. In November 2024, the council adopted the Science and Management Challenges to guide in identifying your preliminary research and data needs. The SSC then identified some preliminary research and data needs recommendations for you, which you adopted at the April 2025 council meeting, in addition to edits and recommendations from your other advisory bodies in their reports. The advanced briefing book contained an attachment 1, which was a compilation of the council's preliminary research and data needs for review and consideration for final action at this meeting. That included, again, much of the edits and recommendations from your advisory bodies, as well as the council's guidance on your priorities. For this meeting, the preliminary list could be refined if needed, and a final research and data needs list is scheduled to be adopted. Additional materials that you have before you now include an advisory body report from the Ecosystem Work Group, which was not available prior to the April meeting when the council considered other advisory bodies' initial recommendations for your preliminary priorities. Lastly, you have an SSC report with their final recommendations to consider at this meeting. And with that, I will take any questions related to the council task or any of the materials that you have in front of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Marlene. With that, before we get to the reports, any questions on the overview? Seeing no questions, then we're going to start first with the Ecosystem Work Group report. And I believe Dr. Tommy Moore is online to deliver that. Dr. Moore, can you hear us? And they might be working on so it doesn't appear that Dr. Moore was able to connect. Marlene, do you have the report available? Could you read that into the record so we hear it?
Yes, I can read the report. I will be reading agenda item D3A, the supplemental EWG report 1 from June 2025, the Ecosystem Work Group report on research and data needs. The Ecosystem Work Group discussed research and data needs during its meeting on May 27, 2025, and reviewed agenda item D3 attachment 1. The EWG expresses its appreciation to the Scientific and Statistical Committee for identifying preliminary research and data needs recommendations, and to the Council for incorporating additional recommendations provided by advisory bodies at the Council's April 2025 meeting. Unfortunately, the EWG did not meet in April, and we were unable to provide comments on the preliminary list of research and data needs at that time. We offer the following suggested additions for consideration at this meeting as part of the final list of research and data needs. The numbering below corresponds to the science and management challenges as shown in agenda item D3 attachment 1. Data collection, ecosystem monitoring, append to the first bullet, develop a coastwide krill index. The EWG notes that the Cal Coffee and other West Coast cruises provide a data stream for krill and copepods that could be valuable for monitoring the entirety of our California current ecosystem. The need remains for better understanding and synthesis of the various data sets into a single coastwide krill index. Copepod abundance was recently linked with anchovy recruitment, and krill and copepod data may be a valuable resource for making near-term forecasts of fishery availability. Data collection, sub-bullet B, ecosystem monitoring, add a new bullet, ensure the diet data is analyzed in a timely manner. Currently, highly migratory species and other marine mammal diet information collected via samples from commercial and recreational fishermen is lagged behind by 1 or more years. Diet data collection and analysis for West Coast species has been poorly funded and supported for decades, yet is essential to understanding species interactions within and beyond the California current ecosystem. Challenge number 2, stock assessment methodologies. Add a new bullet, explore use of multi-species and ecosystem-based management. Explore use of multi-species and ecosystem-based assessment methods to expand opportunities for using single and multi-species management reference points. Challenge number 5, ecosystem dynamics. Add a new bullet, identify and evaluate environmental or biological data needed to help inform or validate dynamic ocean management tools for fisheries needs. Challenge number 6, harvest policy. Append to the first bullet or add a new bullet. Better understand how changing environmental conditions affect performance of existing and potential alternative harvest control rules. That is the end of the statement. I would ask whether Dr. Moore might be online to answer any questions. Thank you.
And I'll look back to see if getting an indication he's there. Dr. Moore, can you hear us? No? Dr. Moore.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chair. I was having computer issues.
Okay. Well, Marlene read the EWG report in. I'm going to look around and see if there are any questions on that that you can answer at this time. And I don't see any questions, but hang around. I know the topic here is addressed in the next report also. So with that, we're going to go to the Scientific and Statistical Committee report then. The reason we do those, we're doing those in this order. And to give that report again is Dr. Jason Schaffler. Dr. Schaffler.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the council. I am Jason Schaffler, and I will be reading Agenda Item D3A, Supplemental SSC Report 1, Scientific and Statistical Committee Report on Research and Data Needs Final Action. The Scientific and Statistical Committee discussed research and data needs, council preliminary priorities, and an advanced copy of the Ecosystem Workgroup statement provided by Tommy Moore. Appended to this report is a version of Agenda Item D3 Attachment 1 with the SSC's suggested modifications, which include the recommendations of the EWG with minor edits. The SSC did not find the bulleted list in the preamble to be a necessary or clarifying addition to the document, as the topics were overly broad. The SSC also revised a few suggestions from other advisory committees that were repetitive, unclear, or not targeted at research or data. For future iterations of the research and data needs priorities, the SSC encourages the development of a more efficient process timed to maximize early engagement with council advisory bodies and researchers that consult or use the research and data needs document in prioritizing their research. And that concludes the SSC's statement. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Schaffler on the SSC report? And looking around the room, Executive Director Burden.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Not a question so much as just an expression of thanks to Jason and the SSC. Marlene and I pushed them really hard on this, and the process was a little clunky in retrospect. I do think we have a document here in front of us with their recommendations that is a really nice contribution and also a very well-timed contribution. When we were at the CCC meeting a few weeks ago, NOAA science folks were expressing their keen interest in looking over the research and data needs documents and trying to use those as tools to help align a little bit more effectively with the councils. And so I think what we have here is a good contribution and will help us in those dialogues. So Dr. Schaffler, just want to say thank you and hope you can carry my expression of thanks back to the rest of the SSC.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments regarding the SSC report? And I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Dr. Schaffler. That's all of our reports. There is no public comment to take on this. So that will take us to the one task here before us, adopt final research and data needs. And who will I call on to start that discussion? Corey Ridings.
Thank you, Vice. I don't want to jump ahead of any discussion, but just noting I have a motion if and when we're ready for that.
Let me make one more call for hands on discussion. Not seeing it, so let's have a motion.
Okay, thank you, Vice. Thank you, Tower of Power. I move to adopt as final the research and data needs as described in Agenda Item D3A, Supplemental SSC Report 1.
Thank you. I followed along. That language appears accurate and complete.
It is.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by, I got lots of hands to choose from. Sharon Kiefer, I saw that one first. Please speak to your motion.
Thanks. Just noting a lot of good work that went into this for multiple advisory bodies over multiple meetings, including a new process that was laid out for us a few meetings back by council staff. So just reflecting that that is visible here as we get to final action and appreciative of all that work. This motion includes the edits from the SSC that Director Burden spoke to just a moment ago and the EWG as described in both of their reports. This is a newish step for the council's research and data needs by setting and describing priorities, which is a change from our previous sort of long list and database that we have. And I hope that this can stimulate and support science and data collection that reflects the most important needs of the council right now.
All right, thank you. Any questions for clarification on this? No questions for clarification. Discussion on the motion. I see Corey Niles getting ready. Corey.
Keely told me I couldn't pontificate past 6 o'clock, so but seriously, thanks to all the work that went into this, and yeah, Merrick, and thanks to Merrick and Marlene for coming with a different way of doing this. I think it's been a bit of a holy grail. This is probably the 3rd or 4th iteration I've been through here. It seems impossible to get to that list of what's our highest priority and any kind of specificity of what the research and data needs. But I'm just going to quickly reflect on something Merrick said and what he heard at the CCC. And I'm wondering if this, and I'm thinking also to the discussions we've heard related to from NIMS about their ability to manage whatever 500 whatever stock is across the country. And I really, as I said at the time, appreciated how Sam Rauch said it, is like, if you're going to have a species in the FMP, then you want to know the data you need to manage it. First, I don't know if there's an exception in the Magnuson Act for that if you determine a species needs conservation and management. But yeah, how well you can do it depends on the data. And I was not hearing a lot of appreciation for how it all works on the West Coast. And again, this is the SSC, and everyone spent a lot of time on this, but I don't know if you read this that you understand where the landings data comes from the commercial fisheries and how the PACFIN budget supports that, or all the, I'm going to ask Butch about the coded wire tags that make the salmon fisheries run, and the recreational surveys that make our recreational fisheries run, and then all of the otolith collections and the bottom trawl survey, all of this. So I don't know that this is going to accomplish that and teach people how our data collection works and what species it applies to and not. But it is, I know people have been at Pacific States been making more of an effort to explain how that PACFIN budget helps us. And I think I've also thinking of the efforts that we've seen from industry writing letters to Congress, trying to explain the importance of it, and folks like Butch going back to try to explain it. But it really is important to explain to people where the data comes from and where the budget in particular comes from, and how all the state and federal cooperation and tribal cooperation come together. But okay, I will leave it there. And yeah, thanks again to everyone for all the work on this.
All right, thank you. Other discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And is there any further discussion regarding this? Keely, I'm watching my clock. It's getting close to 6 o'clock here in my time zone. So no other discussion to be had. Marlene, is there more we should do?
Thank you, Vice Chair Hassemer. The council has completed their task of adopting the final research and data needs for this review cycle. I will work with your executive director on completing this task through the COP on reporting out these research and data needs to the relevant parties. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. With that, I will close out this agenda item and turn the gavel back to the chair.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Hassemer. Great work, everyone. Before we go, I'll turn to Executive Director Burden here for announcements or what tomorrow's going to look like. So, Barrett?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll just quickly make sure we're all oriented to how the flow will go tomorrow, since we did shuffle the agenda around a bit this afternoon. So tomorrow morning, barring any protests from any of you, tomorrow morning what we would plan to start off with would be D2, and that's the council response to executive orders and administrative updates. And then we would continue to follow the order as it was originally scheduled. So fiscal matters would come up second, other administrative matters after that. So unless I hear any objection, we will start tomorrow morning with agenda item D2. That's all that I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, fantastic. I'd just like to make an announcement that it's almost 5 and only 2 of my 4 kids wish me happy birthday. So there's a change in the will. All right. Father's Day. Oh, that's your birthday? Oh, I'm sorry. It's my day. Whatever.
Because we've been in council all day.
Well, I apologize. You get 9 minutes before 5. So, all righty. Anyway, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.